I want you to understand that I didn't believe in ghosts before that night. I'm still not sure I do, to be honest, but I know what I saw. I remember coming home from school one Friday in the rain. My dad, coughing like a barking seal and drunk on the sofa, was playing his old Johnny Cash records. 5 feet high and rising, he was singing along to the chorus between splutters. It sometimes felt like the floodwaters were coming up around our ankles in those days. It wasn't unexpected. They found him on the sofa on the morning of Halloween. When I got there, the paramedics were wrapping him in a blanket, which I thought was nice. His skin felt cold when I touched his hand. I sat on the front step next to Mum. Neither of us had anything to say. It had never rained so hard on Halloween night, but the city was still buzzing. Too early for the underdressed drinking crowd, but the hooded tribes of families in rain ponchos were still in evidence, traipsing back to their cars to get home and dry. Even when the rain let up for a time, the clouds were bullying the sky, and the air tasted like metal. I was on my way home from work. There were no jobs near us, of course, so I worked over in the business park in Lisnagalvin, stacking shelves in the big supermarket. My ma used to tell me about my great-granny, who I never met. She was a line worker in the Star Shirt factory. She and her sisters would trade funny songs every Sunday evening in front of the hearth to get a nice tune in their heads to sing over and over in the production line and make the day pass more quickly. I like to think my Lady Gaga playlist on the bus from town up to my own work carried on the family tradition. We learned at primary school that shirt factories had 19,000 feet of floor space. I could hardly imagine. The poor woman seemed agitated, but totally unaware of the driving rain pouring down on her from the rusted guttering. Her hair was clipped into 3 tight sections with hairpins, and she was muttering to herself. I thought she'd maybe dressed up as like a 40s pin-up girl or something for Halloween, pining for some useless mutt of a boyfriend or something. But then I saw that she was carrying a baby. Pale and sickly looking with fierce blue eyes, wrapped in soiled linen. Some costume prop to have there, I thought. "Are you all right?" I said to her, worried for the baby if nothing else. She looked at me with surprise, amazed to be even recognised by another human being at all. But she didn't answer me. 5 bob and 9 pence, she kept saying, over and over again. "Do you need money for a taxi, love?" I said. I turned to dodge the splash of a puddle as a car sped through a pothole beside me. When I turned back, she was gone. There was a strange stain on the red brick wall where she had stood. I touched it and pulled my hand away in pain. My fingertips burned as though 1,000 motorised needles had been driven into my skin and flesh and bone. Another taxi passed, but this one slowed down before the potholes and lowered the driver's side window. "Excuse me, love, do you know the way to the mouth of hell?" A shiver nosedived from my scalp to my shoes. "What did you say?" "I said, do you know the way to Hardin Street?" I did, of course, but I ran all the same. I ran past the Fountain Primary School onto the grass before the patch of gravel where they had the bonfires. I took my shoes off, cursed my high heels, and kept moving. My bare feet were sticking in the mud, It felt like the claws of earth were grabbing up at me, pulling me towards the dark earth. Suddenly, I fell forward and tumbled into a deep pit. The only light in the thick grey sky were the fireworks. At least, I thought they were fireworks. The illuminations had no joyous colour, no shape, just a bright white light and a howling, piercing whistle. "Oh, Jesus, we're all gonna die," said a voice behind me. Another firework goes off, except this one brings a thick spray of muck and rainwater into my face, and as though I should have expected a dismembered forearm served at the elbow, landed at my feet. The man beside me is cuddling a rifle, and the thick green army uniform is caked with mud and smells like mould. A wisp of black moustache on his top lip is slicked with rainwater or tears. He saw me next to him and starts, although he doesn't seem that surprised to see me. He said something, that it was lost in the hail of explosions that sounds too close to ignore. I strained to hear him. "My mother thanks you," I eventually gather. I noticed then the young man has bright blue eyes, stood out against the brown of the mud and the khaki green in his uniform. "Where am I?" "It's hard to tell," he said, letting a couple of rounds fly from the rifle into the night. "You're lying on the wet grass near your home. I'm about to die in a trench in northern France. This is maybe somewhere in the middle." "I'm scared," I said. "Don't be scared," he said, shifting his weight with a grunt up onto his feet. "It won't help." And then he too was gone. The light from the fireworks faded, and I struggled to my feet, strangely free of the filth that enveloped me moments before. I was not more than 50 steps from my home now, and I set off with a purpose. I fell in behind a group of girls who I assumed were on their way to a party. They were all wearing long overcoats, and none of them spoke as they trudged along in the headwind. I just wanted to get into the house and get my head straight. But they were taking up the whole pavement, and they seemed to be slowing down. "Excuse me," I said. "Can I get past you there?" They turned slowly, and the breath left me like a punch in the gut. Each girl seemed to have been punctured with thousands of needle pricks on their face and necks and hands. Blood was leaking out, pulling into the puddles around our feet. Their eyes faded to blank white spheres, the colour drained from their faces, and one by one they slumped, unconscious on the ground. They seemed to be dissolving now entirely. The overcoats deflated to sodden rags. I found my breath and ran again, reaching my front door in less time than it took me to find the key in my shaking hands and turn the lock. Inside, out of the rain, I leaned against the door and took a deep breath. Then another. The sound of my breath was shattered by a hard acoustic guitar chord and the deep bass voice of Johnny Cash. At first, I thought it was a bit strange. Mum always hated those old country records. And then I heard another voice join in. A voice broken by violent coughs. Before I could stop myself, I edged forward and felt for the door handle. I opened it, slowly. And there he was, on the sofa, just where they found him. I gasped so loudly it seemed to push the stylus from the record with a fearsome snatch. He stood up, choking and gurgling, trying to tell me something that he couldn't get out. The girls in the overcoats materialised through the wall behind him, their pale faces stitched with sewing thread into neat, fresh seams, and began pulling at his arms to take him away. He looked back with wild, pleading fear in his eyes and gave a final, guttural cough. The raindrops outside the window appeared to have stopped, suspended in mid-air. A Halloween night that threatened to never end.
Across the Divide was written by Andy Womerton, performed by Michaela McGillian, original music by Colin Norby, and sound design by Brogan Wakely. Thank you for listening to Across the Divide.